Hello everyone. This is the 25th part of the story, Marvel Unlimited Skills, I Can Download. Chapter 165, Fail. At the moment, the whole sky was dark with a trace of purple in it, which looked extremely magnificent. But it was a smell of destruction, a smell of despair. There were countless houses and vehicles destroyed around, and even the land was torn apart. And the bloodstains overspread the scarred land, and the shouts kept going, which was also a kind of despair. When Bruce brought Strange and Mordo to this place, their eyes were full of shock. Not far away from them, the last holy place was destroyed and collapsed completely. And around them were those masters who had fought with Caecilius before, but they were all dead now. Wong's body also had fallen into the ruins, which made them shocked. It's over. It's all over. After seeing this, Mordo was filled with despair. Everything around was destroyed, and Dormammu was coming. They looked at the overflowing light in the sky, which was the light of the dark dimension. Once Dormammu appeared, he would destroy the whole earth. At that time, the whole earth would be his nourishment, and completely be shrouded by the darkness. At the moment, Strange was greatly shocked in his heart. He didn't expect that they would still be late. Originally, he thought that he would be able to have a fight, but now it seemed that they did not have any hope to win. You're late. And Dormammu will devour the world. At this moment, Caecilius walked out with the believers of Dormammu, and a smile appeared on his face. This time, they were completely victorious. And as long as Dormammu came, no matter who it was, he could not stop his footsteps. Perhaps Ancient One was able to do it. But she was already dead and could never appear. Now, the only qualified sorcerer supreme on the earth had disappeared. Mordo looked at the Strange in front of him with his eyes full of hatred. At the moment, they would not be able to protect the earth. Because maybe they couldn't even protect themselves. But when Caecilius saw Bruce, there was a slight of fear in his eyes. Soon, however, it was suppressed. Caecilius thought that Dormammu was powerful, and no matter who it was, he could not stop him. Although Bruce was also strong in his eyes, he thought Dormammu, who was the master of the dark dimension, would be stronger. I didn't expect that you would come. Although I don't know who you are, when you see this scene, do you still think anyone else can stop it? You can't do it. Finally, I defeated you. At the moment, Caecilius looked at Bruce in front of him, and he was a bit proud. All of this was his masterpiece. Of course he would be happy. But Bruce did not look at him, and his eyes were full of calmness, because he was observing the situation above. In the sky, there were a variety of substances that do not belong to the earth, which were just the power of the dark dimension. Now Caecilius was nothing to him, and he didn't give attention to him at all. What he wanted to do was to stop Dormammu. How dare you ignore me? After seeing this, Caecilius' eyes were filled with anger. At the moment, he immediately launched an attack against Bruce, and he wanted to kill all the people who ignored him. But when he came close to Bruce with others, everyone was suspended. There was an unknown power that was constraining them, and they couldn't get rid of it. Of course, that unknown power was Bruce's use of psychokinesis. At the moment, Bruce looked at Caecilius, and a smile appeared on his face. Actually, I don't have any interest in you. But it was just that you stubbornly attacked me, so I had to strike back. Go! After Bruce said this, a series of thunderbolts were like a giant snake dancing in the sky, and the powerful force was constantly bursting out. It was the power of destruction. Then several thunderbolts with tens of meters in diameter burst out in a flash, penetrating their bodies directly. Boom! Just in a flash, Caecilius and others were all killed directly and did not have hope to survive at all. It was better to kill people like this. When Mordo and Strange saw this, their faces changed dramatically. The destructive thunderbolts just now were really terrible, and it seemed that it could destroy everything. Once again, they had an unpredictable panic about Bruce's power. Especially Strange. Whenever he felt that he was getting closer to Bruce, then Bruce would burst out more powerful, which made him couldn't see where the real bottom line of Bruce's power was. Mordo also felt it at the same time. But it was still not enough to stop Dormammu with such power. What should we do now? Dormammu is really coming. At the moment, Mordo said. And he looked at the sky, the darkness constantly spreading, which made him very worried. At this moment, Bruce turned around and looked at the two people present. Then he said, "Look at me." They were slightly stunned and did not understand what was the meaning of Bruce's words. But at the next moment, Bruce lifted his hands directly and opened the eye of Agamotto. Then several unknown green lights wrapped his body. Because he had a much more understanding of the time gem than Strange, he was also very skilled when using magic. Sizzle! The next moment, the time gem made a powerful force to reverse all the time around. Of course, under Bruce's intentional control, Caecilius and others were not under the influence of the time gem's power. So they didn't come back to life. Time was back, the earth began to close, and even the bloodstain began to rotate and then turned into blood and entered people's bodies once again. After a short time, those killed, and those dead in car accidents were all revived, and everything came back to the time before Caecilius's invasion. Strange and Mordo were confused about this power and looked at everything around them. What's going on here? At the moment, Mordo seemed to be aware of something, then he asked. He knew that this might be the power of the Eye of Agamotto, but he did not expect that it would be so powerful. Reverse time. This had broken the law of all the things. At the moment, Strange seemed to suddenly be aware of something, and his eyes lit up. He finally knew what Bruce wanted him to do. The spell is working. At the moment, Bruce looked around and couldn't help sighing. It was indeed the time gem, one of the 6 infinity gems, and its power was really strong. As long as it was that something had happened recently, it could reverse them back. It was just a bug. No wonder Dormammu would be defeated. If it was someone else, he would also definitely fail. At this moment, Bruce's body was floating in the air. And he looked at Mordo and Strange, then said, "You are responsible for guarding this place. I will meet the master of the dark dimension in the legend." After saying that, he went straight to the air. Chapter 166, Conditions. Soon Bruce finally arrived at the intersection of the real world and the dark dimension. The world of the dark dimension appeared to be magnificent and broad, with countless stars. But all of them were filled with strong dead breaths. This was actually the real dark impasse. But that did not mean that there was no light here, on the contrary, it was colorful and magnificent. When Bruce entered the dark world, he landed on a planet like Pluto. This planet emitted a brilliant light, but it was just an appearance. At the moment, Bruce directly opened the time gem and then produced a time cycle by it. As long as it was in this cycle, no matter what Bruce encountered, time could be traveled back, so as to keep him safe. He could not be sure how powerful Dormammu was, but according to the plot in the movie, when the original Strange faced Dormammu, he could not resist him at all. If he did not rely on the power of the time gem, Strange would not have any chance to win. Therefore, Bruce was very careful when he came here, and he did not want to lose his life here. After all, Dormammu was a very strong presence. Although he was not powerful enough than Thanos, Dormammu almost had eternal vitality, almost impossible to be killed. Therefore, he created a time cycle for the sake of insurance. But since he came here, he did not see Dormammu at all. Boom! At this moment, Bruce felt a strong and terrifying aura behind him, making him sweat all over his body. This breath seemed to make people completely lose their desire to resist it. Then Bruce turned around and finally, he saw that the legendary darkness master, Dormammu. The present Dormammu's size was so huge that it was like a giant city. And what Bruce could see was only a small part of his body. "Are you the Earthman? Now, the Earth belongs to me and I have become my believer." At the moment, Dormammu opened his mouth and the strong aura burst out continuously, making Bruce feel like he was facing an ancient beast. Bruce looked at the master of the dark dimension in front of him and said, "I'm here to talk about conditions." After hearing Bruce's words, Dormammu looked at this small human and laughed. "Ha ha ha, I think you're here to die. Your world is about to belong to me. Its fate is destined to be the same as the other worlds." At the moment, Dormammu directly exploded a terrifying magic power. Then Bruce slightly narrowed his eyes. In a short instant, the terrifying power of lightning bursted out from his body and then clashed with that terrifying magic power. Boom! The two powerful forces were intertwined and then shot out extremely powerful light. Bruce had Thor's ability of power of thunder and lightning, and he had upgraded it before, so the present ability was more powerful than Thor's previous ability of power of thunder and lightning. When the two powerful forces were bombarded together, everything surrounding it was smashed into ashes. How could it be possible? How could a human be able to compete with me? Dormammu roared. The whole space continuously vibrated. At the moment, Dormammu mobilized all the forces of the dark dimension to attack Bruce continuously. It was just that Bruce's body was so strong that a 12-meter diameter meteorite hit his body and could not cause any damage to him. When the war began, Dormammu, the master of the dark dimension, actually could not defeat Bruce. As for Bruce, he was fighting with Dormammu with various abilities. But even so, Bruce could not completely touch Dormammu's real body. The present huge body was the incarnation of Dormammu, not his real body. Therefore, even if Bruce had come into contact with the huge incarnation of Dormammu, he could not download his abilities at all. Number. If it goes on like this, it will not only be able to download his abilities, but even the time cycle will have a problem. I must find a solution. At the moment, Bruce narrowed his eyes slightly, and he intended to restart the time cycle. At the next moment, Bruce stopped directly. In an instant, the power of the entire dark space mobilized by Dormammu was all bombarded on Bruce's body. Now, Bruce's body was even stronger than the terrifying Aesir body he had originally downloaded. So even if Dormammu wanted to destroy him, he also needed to attack him many times. Then Bruce's body was completely destroyed as the dark force continuously hit his body. This troublesome human has finally been settled. Now, it's time for me to invade the Earth. Dormammu turned his head and was ready to deal with the Earth. But at this moment, a mysterious force emerged. Everything around was restored under the action of the time cycle. Then Bruce reappeared in the original ground. He looked at the Dormammu in front of him and said, "Dormammu, I'm here to talk about conditions to you." When Bruce said that, Dormammu did not realize what had happened. "You're here to die. Your world belongs to me now. What's going on? What happened?" At the moment, Dormammu seemed to have realized something. Before, he had already killed the human in front of him. How could this man appear again? "I've locked you with me in a time cycle. If you don't listen to the conditions I will say, this time cycle will continue and everything will continue to happen over and over." Bruce looked at the man in front of him and said calmly. But Dormammu naturally did not have the patience to listen to Bruce's condition, and he attacked Bruce again. But as Bruce had said, everything repeated itself once again, and he was revived continuously. "It's impossible for you to keep circulating like this, and I'll make you feel worse than death," Dormammu said again. He looked at Bruce angrily. Originally, he came to devour Earth, but he had now wasted too much time on this human. "In fact, I can keep circulating like this, and you can try," Bruce said. During these continuous cycles, Bruce had been looking for the real body of Dormammu. Even if he could kill Dormammu's real body, maybe Dormammu still would not die. But Bruce's purpose was not to kill Dormammu, but his abilities. Although Dormammu was not as powerful as Thanos, his dark power was also very powerful. Chapter 167, Ruler. The reason why Dormammu was so powerful was that he could constantly absorb the power of the dark dimension. As long as the dark dimension was not destroyed, he would hardly die. This was an enviable capacity. This time, Bruce came to see Dormammu for two purposes. The first was to complete the task of the system, and the second was to download some of Dormammu's abilities. After all, the dark force of Dormammu was of great use, and Bruce did not think that it would harm the real world by doing so. As long as he was able to grow stronger, he would be able to solve all the dangers he encountered in the future. At this time, Dormammu once again killed Bruce, but Bruce also again appeared as expected, which made Dormammu feel not well. The man in front of him was too difficult to deal with. He had almost used every method, but no matter how hard he tried, the man would be able to resurrect once again. He really had endured enough. Tell me, what conditions do you have? Dormammu finally gave up attacking Bruce. At this moment, he did not continue to attack Bruce. Because Dormammu had many things to do, and he didn't want to be trapped in this time circle. Now he wanted to hear what conditions the human had. More importantly, if he attacked Bruce like this, his power would be weakened again and again. And after a long time, maybe he could not keep his peak state. Because he found that in this time cycle, he seemed no longer able to continue to draw the power of the dark dimension. And if Dormammu wanted to go out of this time cycle, he had to make Bruce unlock the time circle initiatively. Otherwise, Bruce might restart at any time. At the moment, after hearing Dormammu's words, Bruce smiled. He looked at Dormammu and said directly, "If you want to talk about conditions to me, you can, but I need to see your real body. Otherwise, this condition will not have to be discussed." Then Bruce raised his head and looked at the Dark Ruler in front of him. His words showed a hint of threat. And Dormammu certainly could understand Bruce's meaning, and he wanted to be angry. It was just that even if he killed the man in front of him, he would be able to resurrect again. Dormammu was silent for a moment. He did not know what the man was doing, but if he wanted him to unlock this time cycle, he had to do what he said. Good. After saying this sentence, his bulky body began to shrink. Soon, he turned into a normal human size, and his appearance was similar to a human. At the moment, Dormammu slowly walked to Bruce and said, "You should say your condition now, and how can I get out of this time cycle?" Although Dormammu had been transformed into a human body, he still emitted the powerful dark and evil spirit, just like the devil crawling out of hell. The powerful and evil spirits made people scared, but Bruce was not scared of Dormammu. "Now, you leave the earth. And when you see me later, you should retreat tentatively." Bruce looked at the man in front of him and said. And Dormammu naturally felt very angry after hearing the words. This was to force him. But he had no way now. More importantly, Dormammu was able to clearly feel that this man in front of him had other trump cards. He clearly saw that Bruce had not used his full strength in the previous battles. "Your conditions are only these. As long as I agree, you will let me leave this time cycle?" Dormammu asked, and now he had to unconditionally agree to Bruce's conditions. Yes, only these conditions. Bruce knew what Dormammu was thinking. Just now, he did not say that he did not let Dormammu ever invade the Earth, because he only needed to stop Dormammu to invade the Earth for this time. As for the future, if Dormammu invaded the Earth again, then it would be the next Sorcerer Supreme's thing. More importantly, the future Doctor Strange would not have a sense of danger if Dormammu disappeared. "Well, I can promise you. Let me out." Dormammu did not want to stay in this time cycle for a moment. And he swore secretly that if he saw this man in front of him in the future, he would not hesitate to walk away. After hearing Dormammu's words, Bruce smiled. At last, he had finally completed the task. As expected, the power of the time gem was still extremely terrifying. Unfortunately, he had no way to absorb the power of infinite gems at this stage. Otherwise, if he had the power of 6 infinite gems, it would be afraid that nobody in the entire universe would be able to deal with him. Of course, this meant that the powerful figures in those comics were not present. Thank you for your understanding. I hope that we will have similar cooperation in the future. After the promise of Dormammu, Bruce directly walked to him and reached out his palm. This was a social etiquette. Although Dormammu was the ruler of the dark dimension, he knew it. But when he looked at Bruce's eyes, he was full of anger. However, he was afraid that Bruce would take back his words, and then he also reached out a palm and shook hands with Bruce. And the moment Bruce had just come into contact with the Dormammu's body, the information about Dormammu appeared in front of him. Name, Dormammu. Identity, Dark Dimension Master. Ability, Dark Power, Energy Value, 30W, Element Control, Energy Value, 10W, Dark Magic Energy, Energy Value, 5W, Dark Hypnosis, Energy Value, 3W, Transmission, Energy Value, 3W, spiritual induction, energy value, 3W, psychokinesis, energy value, 1.5W. When Bruce saw all this, a smile appeared on his face. His plan was successful. It was exactly the same as what he expected. As long as he touched the body of Dormammu, he would be able to download his abilities. Chapter 168, Dark Magic. Although the Master of the Dark Dimension was not comparable to Ancient One in the magic power, he could ensure that no one could easily kill him only with the ability of dark power. And this was also why Ancient One had been unable to eliminate him. The dark power was from the Dark Dimension and was one of the most powerful forces in the universe. Therefore, as long as the source of darkness existed, Dormammu could not be completely eliminated. Otherwise, he and Ancient One could not compete for such a long time. And Ancient One's only way to deal with Dormammu was to seal him outside the Earth. It was also the only way that Ancient One could think of. But the dark power needed 300,000 energy values. Although this ability was strong, and Bruce wanted to get it, with his current energy value, it was impossible for him to download it. Therefore, Bruce had to choose other abilities. Element Control ability was an ability that could control various elements, such as wind, fire, water, and earth. As long as owning this ability, it was basically equivalent to have the ability to control all substances. So it was also a powerful ability. But now Bruce was still unable to download it. If he can download it, he would not hesitate to download it. Well, I'm still waiting for a chance. At the moment, Bruce lamented that his energy value was not enough. And other abilities such as dark hypnosis, transmission, etc. Bruce did not need them for the time being. Bruce also had owned psychokinesis. Therefore, he only could download the ability of Dormammu's dark magic power. After the ordinary person absorbed a large amount of dark energy, it absolutely would come back to bite them and make them lose their mind. But the ability of this dark magic power could let the user have no side effects after absorbing the power of darkness. It was totally different from Caecilius's way for absorbing the dark power. This was Dormammu's way to absorb dark power, and it was also a powerful source of Dormammu. It was precisely because of this ability, Dormammu just could become more powerful. Therefore, after Bruce got this ability, he could continuously absorb the energy of the Dark Dimension without any side effects. And Bruce could do a lot of things if he had such an ability. The biggest benefit was that he could burst out a powerful attack ability. Even he could indirectly control others by dark power. Thinking of this, Bruce no longer had hesitation and began to download it directly. Beep, the connection is successful. Beep, downloading dark magic power requires an energy value of 50,000 points. Yes or no? The moment the sound of the system came, Bruce chose yes directly. Beep, the download was successful. Beep, congratulations to the host for having the dark magic energy ability. At the moment the sound of the system came, Bruce only felt that all the dark energy around him was constantly coming towards him. With the continuous convergence of darkness energy, Bruce felt that his body and spirit were constantly reinforced by this dark energy. And at this moment, Dormammu had already loosened Bruce's hand. He looked at him with a hint of impatience on his face. He said directly, "Can we unlock the time cycle now?" This time, the invasion of the Earth made him very unhappy. He swore secretly that he would not invade the Earth for a long time in the future. At least, he would never come back during the period that Bruce stayed on Earth. Bruce, who had just obtained the ability of Dormammu with a smile on his face, said directly, "Of course." Whereafter, Bruce immediately unlocked the time cycle without hesitation. And when Dormammu felt the time cycle was unlocked, he turned into the original huge body and disappeared directly over the Earth with his dark world. At this moment, Bruce looked at the place where Dormammu disappeared, and he felt a little pity. Dormammu's body still had the abilities which he was very interested in. It was really a pity that let him go. But Bruce did not lament for too long. He was ready to return to Earth directly and rebuild the holy place of Hong Kong with the power of Time Gem. Beep, congratulations to the host for defeating Dormammu successfully. Beep, congratulations to the host for completing the task and getting 100,000 points of energy value. At the moment, Bruce secretly cursed, "Fuck." After Dormammu left, the system just published the completed task. Why couldn't it be a little earlier? Otherwise, he could download more of Dormammu's abilities. But Dormammu had already gone. It was not easy for Bruce to find him again. At the moment, Bruce shook his head slightly. At the same time, he was also surprised at why the system had not yet released new tasks. According to past experience, as long as the present task was completed, the system would also publish new tasks at once, but this time, it didn't. Then the system passed a passage to Bruce. The reason was that the new task was still in the screening and would not be released so quickly. After the plot of Doctor Strange, it was the plot of Thor, Ragnarok. But the plot of Thor, Ragnarok did not have too much relationship with Bruce. And all of them happened in Asgard. But after Thor, Ragnarok, it was the plot of the Avengers Alliance 3. That was the real important plot. What Bruce had done before was to welcome the arrival of the Thanos. The power of Thanos was indisputable, but Bruce had a way to deal with him. At least with Bruce's current abilities, it was already enough to fight with Thanos, who had not gathered the 6 gems. Thinking of this, Bruce opened his own system panel directly. Name, Bruce Lite. Identity, Level 6 Agent. Ability, War God Body, God's Bloodline, Godly Fighting Ability, Control of Thunder and Lightning, Divine Power, Acer's Strength, Magic Ball, Body Blur, High Speed Movement, Spider Telepathy, Body and Shield as one, Dark Magic Energy. Warehouse, Super Vibranium Shield, Mark Armor, Ant-Man's Battle Suit, Infinite Edition. Balance, 200 WUSD. Energy value, 13 W points. Although there was no big change in general, his strength was even more powerful. Chapter 169, Departure. Bruce only could choose some weaker abilities to download when he firstly came to Marvel World. At that time, he could accelerate the speed of downloading by dollars, because those abilities were very weak. But this was normal because what he could contact was at a very low level at that time. At the moment, he had been counted as the top of the world, and the superheroes that he came into contact with were also extremely powerful. It could be said that Bruce was completely different from the previous one. When he first came to the Marvel world, he was just trying to keep himself alive, but now he had become a chess player from a chess piece. And Bruce also had experienced a lot of things, and even gave Bruce a feeling that he had lived once. At this moment, Bruce looked at the system panel and now he had 130,000 energy values. He could do a lot of things with these energy values. Strange would become the next Sorcerer Supreme in the future. At that time, his own abilities would be completed. The Sorcerer Supreme was the leader of the Earth's magic world. Each of the Sorcerer Supreme had a powerful and incredible power, but at the same time he was also shouldering a major responsibility. But in the eyes of Bruce, responsibility was only a constraint. And from the beginning to the end, Bruce did not want to bear any responsibility. Therefore, he had always been doing what he wanted to do. For example, before, when he was in the S.H.I.E.L.D., even the S.H.I.E.L.D. director, Nick Fry, could not command him to do anything. Now, Dormammu had left and the crisis in the real world had been removed. Since the system had not yet released a new task, which made Bruce suddenly unable to adapt. Whereafter, he returned directly to the ground. When he saw Strange, everything around was back to normal. And not far from him, the holy place of Hong Kong had also been restored to the original look. This was the ability of Time Gem, which could go back in time. When Bruce built the time cycle before, he also shrouded the holy place of Hong Kong in it. Therefore, those ordinary people did not find any anomalies now. And another advantage of doing so was that the Avengers couldn't detect anything that had happened here. The goal of being locked by Time's cycle was unable to know what he had experienced before, unless it was a powerful presence like Dormammu. More importantly, during the period of Time's cycle, the scope and the real world shrouded by this magic were more like being in two different time spaces, or the universe, which was similar to the mirror space. Or they could be called the magic world, which were two totally different dimensions compared with the real world. Like before, no matter how many times Ancient One had fought with Dormammu, there was no record in the history of the real world. But this did not mean that the crisis in the magic world would not affect the real world. For example, if the battle between the Ancient One and Dormammu had failed, or this time Bruce was unable to stop Dormammu, then the collapse of the magic world would directly lead to the collapse of the real world. At the moment, when Bruce saw Strange, Mordo had gone. There were only Wong and Strange and a master who did not know what had happened here. He still doesn't know what to do. He just left. Strange looked at Bruce in front of him and a helpless expression appeared on his face. As Master Ancient One said, Mordo was a very conservative man, and he almost did not agree with any action of breaking rules. Because in his mind, once the rules were broken, then it would definitely bring out more serious consequences. And someday, they would pay a heavy price for this. After hearing Strange's words, Bruce nodded. He understood Mordo very much, because everything had two sides. As a Sorcerer Supreme, Ancient One could make herself live forever by absorbing the power from the dark dimension. But it was also because of this, she felt the whole world was meaningless for her and then she wanted to die. The reason why she had been alive all the time was that she had been waiting for the next Sorcerer Supreme to come, except she had to bear the responsibility to protect the real world. In fact, she had had enough of such a life, and this event also helped her to escape from it. Mordo is right. We will pay a heavy price for this. Bruce nodded. Although he had already repelled Dormammu, Thanos would have come to Earth soon. At that time, it was not just a disaster of the Earth, but a disaster across the universe. No one could survive. Perhaps this was also one of the consequences of breaking the rules. After hearing Bruce's words, Strange was shocked. He did not care about other people's words, but he had to pay attention to Bruce's words. Wong's look was also extremely serious. Although the Earth once again avoided the dooms of Dormammu's devouring, the Masters of Kamar-Taj had died too much. If it was just like what Bruce had said that they would pay a much more price to this, then Kamar-Taj might really disappear in the dust of history. After all, the current Sorcerer Supreme Strange had not really grown up. And it might be a few decades later when Strange truly could bear the burden. Then what should we do? Is there any way to avoid it? Strange asked Bruce. At this moment, Strange seemed to be cautious, and he hoped that Bruce could come up with a solution. But Bruce did not answer immediately. He just looked at the holy place of Hong Kong and gave a faint smile. Just as I told you before, no matter what kind of opponent it is, no matter how powerful your opponent is, what we need to do is just fight. After saying that, he headed straight to the holy place of Hong Kong. And Wong also nodded deeply. He glanced at Strange and then left with Bruce. Strange was a very clever person. After hearing Bruce's words, he had a very strong sense of crisis, but he did not have any idea about what he should do. Then let's fight. Unconsciously, Strange seemed to have thought of something. Since it was impossible to stop the enemy from coming, then preparing for the battle at any time. More importantly, although Kamar-Taj did not now have the Sorcerer Supreme, there was also Bruce. And if there was another disaster, it would not be possible for him to resist. But even if he couldn't resist it, could Bruce be able to do it? Thinking of this, Strange felt extremely relaxed. It was just that Strange did not know that Bruce already had planned to let him begin accepting the burden of the Sorcerer Supreme. This marks the end of part 25 of the story Marvel Unlimited Skills, I Can Download. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.